I have to answer this question, and then I think I'm going to leave this topic alone. But I get so many emails about this still, and still people bring it up on Twitter and things like that. So I have to answer it one more time. It is worth going back to it. This is from Ben. He says, thank you for picking my question. I'm curious to hear more about why you say a woman could never beat a man in a sword fight. It's a silly subject to continue debating, but it does seem like you have a strong stance that may need further clarification. Many in the historical European martial arts community have asked for clarification on your view of women in sword fighting. It's apparent to them and myself that the question comes down to strength and skill. A woman who has trained extensively with a sword could easily defeat a man who had no or little skill, even if he had superior strength. There's no question that strength plays a huge role in any martial art, but sword fighting is somewhat unique in that there is a force multiplier of the sword. I'd like to put this matter to rest and would like you to consider this viewpoint for all the nerdy low-life fans who keep asking, such as myself, Shadiversity on YouTube, and many more. Thanks again, and God bless. And of course, let us deal with this. First, this came out of The Witcher. The Witcher had a really good story. A woman trades her power to bear children for the power of magic. That is a resonant, real story. And I was completely wrapped up in it and really enjoyed it. Not the second season, which was garbage, but the first season, which was really good. Then in the middle of it, this witch who we're really following with her dilemma, which is a really human woman's dilemma, suddenly she gets in a sword fight, which she has no power to do. And she takes out these two guards, I don't know, 2 or 3 guards, and she's dueling with them. And I just said, it's ridiculous. She'd be killed in an instant. Now, what I'm not, and by the way, I don't mind movies like Wonder Woman because that's the rule of that story. She's Wonder Woman. She has magic powers. I don't mind her winning fights and doing magical things. That's the rule of those stories. It was not the rule of the story I was watching, so it was bad storytelling. Now, I was not talking about a sports duel, right? Obviously, in a sport with a referee and technique, where technique matters for everything, there's some level of skill and not skill where a woman could defeat anybody. This is, I didn't play a game, but I rallied with a 15-year-old girl in tennis. Now, I'm a terrible tennis player. I loved playing tennis when I could, but I was terrible, and I could never have beaten her. 15-year-old girl, I was an adult male, I would never have been able to beat her in that thing, and it didn't bother me because she had this superior skill. However, when the Williams sisters, Serena and Venus, played the 203rd ranked man. Now, Serena and Venus are not just good tennis players, right? They are the best, among the best female players who have ever played the game, and there's no question about that. They played the 203rd ranked man, right? He beat them. He didn't just beat them, he devastated them. It was 6-2, 6-1, I think. He destroyed them. One of them he beat 6-1, and one of them he beat 6-2. And a racket, by the way, is also a force multiplier, right? But we're not talking about a game. We're talking about war, right? This is important. When you're fighting a guard, when you're fighting a soldier, you're fighting other soldiers, right? And you're a knight fighting other knights. They are going to be at least the 200 ranked male in the sport. And there's not any rules, and there's nothing, there's no dirty fighting, there's nothing like this. So I was watching this film, really good film, by the way, The Last Duel with Adam Driver and Matt Damon. And they get in a duel, and there's very realistic battles, medieval battles in it, and very realistic sword fight at the end. Now, obviously, none of us has ever seen a medieval sword fight, but I have seen a lot of fist fights in bars and other places, and I think this is a very realistic depiction of what this is like. Just take a look at this for a minute. All right, so it's based on a true story, and I read the book, and there is a description of the sword fight, and it's a pretty accurate description. A lady in that, he would not just kill you if you were a lady in this fight, no matter how good a duelist you were. He would not just kill you, he would vaporize you to get to the person on the other side, okay? Now, why does this matter? Why does it matter to me, okay? It matters to me because if you write a story with a woman hero who is not a woman, she's not a woman hero. I was talking earlier on the show about this terrific book I'm reading called Desperate Remedies about psychiatry and the butchery that psychiatrists committed on helpless people. Now, in one of these guys was a guy named Cotton, and he was just pulling people's body parts out with this stupid theory that infection was causing mental illness. And eventually people started to complain and they wanted it investigated. So of course they went to his mentor, who was also a powerful psychiatrist, to debunk it, which he was never going to do. And the mentor said, I don't have time to do this, but I'll send my assistant, who was a young woman named Phyllis Greenacre, okay? And Phyllis Greenacre went out and she studied what he was doing. She came back and she said, and she said it in very scientific, cold language, but she said, this guy's just killing people and it's not doing anything. Nobody's being cured, he's just killing people. So there was a meeting. Phyllis Greenacre and this guy Cotton, who was now an important man and much older than she was. She was a young woman, and he was much older than she was, and he was an important figure. And her boss, who was Cotton's mentor, right, Meyer, 3 days they met over this report that Greenacre put forward. And he just bullied her to change this report. Cotton, he just bullied her and bullied her and bullied her, and she did not budge. She would not give an inch. Now, I'm tearing up now when I'm telling the story, but I was tearing up when I'm reading this because that is a hero. That is what a woman hero looks like. If you wrote that script and said, yeah, and then she punches him, I'm gone. I leave the theater. That's what a woman hero looks like. And so if you're not telling the story, a true story that has some truth in it, you lose me, and I think you should lose everybody. You shouldn't just be politically correct. You should lose everybody. I just want to end with this, however, okay? When I said this originally, the usual left-wing palaver came out, and the name-calling and the, personal insults and all this stuff. And it was bullying. It's bullying me, and that's a waste of your time, I can tell you. I can tell you for my whole life, the people have tried to bully me. That is a waste of your time. And so I responded, as bullies deserve to be responded at, by laughing at them and telling them to get bent, right? But the one thing that does concern me about this is I don't want any of these lady sword fighters to think that I don't honor their commitment to excellence and their athletic ability. I love excellence in all things. I actually like women's tennis better than I like men's because it's slower. Because I'm not a big fan of the Williams sisters because they're so strong. But I like it because it's slower, because it's more strategic, and I can follow it more easily. But I honor excellence in all things, and I, of course, honor it in a woman who is a sword fighter, and I would certainly never want to be in a duel with her. I mean, that's not my point at all. My point is this. When you set the rules of your story and then you break them, and when you put forward a realistic female character and suddenly she's fighting a sword battle, you are not fulfilling the rules of excellence in storytelling. And that's what I do for a living. And I am going to call that out every time. I'm not insulting women by telling the truth about them. I am honoring women by telling the truth about them. And I'm saying when you want to write a story about a heroic woman character, it's actually harder. It's actually harder to do that because she is going to lose a fight. She is going to lose a fist fight. And when instead you do this weak thing that I see in movies over and over again, and you have a woman punch a guy and he goes flying butt over tea kettle out the door, which is in like a dozen movies. I just think, I certainly don't want my daughter thinking that. I'm a black belt. I trained in the martial arts, and they would tell women, if you get one hit in and run, because if he's bigger than you, all the martial arts in the world are not going to help you. So that's all I'm telling you. The truth matters. It matters even when you're doing fiction. I think it matters more when you're doing fiction because fiction is a way of telling a truth that can't otherwise be told. So that is my response to this. Used up my mailbag section, but I'm not going to talk about it anymore because it's ridiculous. For even more Klavan-y goodness, like and subscribe to The Andrew Klavan Show wherever you get your podcasts.